Please come in. Please take a responsibly socially distanced seat from each other. If you're with a pod, you can sit in the same area as them. One group in one section, one group in the other, please. A year ago last week, the world stopped. You're about to enter into that world that has stopped. A world of loss, where we've lost loved ones and we've been unable to grieve them, where we've lost our routines, our sense of time, our sense of space, where we've lost our senses, our smell, our encounter with others, and above all, proximity in the sense of touch. So we're going to take you through that lost world. You'll experience different exhibits that will explore these themes. As you move through the exhibit, once you enter into the virus on the second floor, you'll see some socially distanced circles marked with the letters G, C, A, T. Those stand for guanine, cytosine, adenine, and thymine, which are the nucleotides that make up RNA and DNA, which are at the root of all life. So if you'll please follow those paths as you move through. Once we finish, you'll be invited to quarantine inside of the virus for 5 minutes, after which you can come back down here. This will be open and you can decompress and do whatever you need to do. So before we go, you're going to take your first shot of your vaccine. It's cranberry juice. Blue is a margarita, the red is a cosmopolitan. You can take this with you. And this is one for you. You don't have to shoot it now. You can if you want. You can carry it with you however you want to do. Without further ado, so you can go ahead and take one sip of your vaccine. And now we will enter into the world that has stopped. Follow me, please.
Oh. You're right here. Hello. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being least active and 10 being most active, how would you rate yourself during this pandemic period?
4.
Okay, very good. Will you briefly remove your mask, please, so that I may perform a smell test? Okay. And can you please tell me if you smell this? And how would you describe that smell?
I almost remembered. I almost remembered fruity, like chewing gum.
Yeah. It's great. Very good. So what has been the most negative thing that you've experienced in the past year?
My old age has accelerated really fast.
And what would you say the most positive thing that you've experienced in the past year has been?
I'm perfectly happy about all of it.
That's good. So do you believe that there will be a return to normal post-pandemic?
For many reasons, I think everything's going to be different. Politics and tribal factions.
Okay. Very good. If you will come right this way, sir. You will now be ascending to the next level. Good luck.
Oh, good. You made it. It's good to see you. Thank you, your welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, please take a seat 6 feet from others. I shall be assisting you through these trying times. We at the Ministry of Personal Protection have been working around the clock to provide you with safety, and we have a solution. We have devised a system of protective measures and safety protocols in order to assure your safe passage through this crisis. Please stay in your pockets. Firstly, wear masks and protective coverings over your face and nose. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Use 70% isopropyl alcohol sanitizer when soap and water are not available. Avoid others at all costs, remembering to maintain a 6-foot distance between yourself and other persons. This is the point of the pill return. Prepare to enter the virus. Upon entering, there is no going back. Remember that once you pass through this gate,
The virus is not alive. The virus is not dead. The virus is at the edge of life. The virus is at the edge of death. What the virus does is simply transmit information. The virus is not conscious. It is not living. It has no mind. It is dumb. And much like other information systems, whether it's binary code, human language, Morse code, its only mission is to replicate itself. But in order to replicate itself, it must enter into and collide with life. And when it collides with life, that's when meaning arises. That's when pain arises. That's when all of the change that we've experienced in this last year has happened. So you're about to enter into the virus. You will travel up this spiral staircase, which is similar to the single strand of the RNA helix. You will then pass through a hugging gate and be invited to engage in that most central of senses that we lost, touch. You'll be coached on how to hug each other and maybe hug the hug shaman, after which you will enter further into other exhibits exploring love, loneliness, and loss.
How often you might rub your forehead or flip your hair or put your chin into your palm or rub your hands? Why do you think that is? Your nervous system requires it. We do self-calming mechanisms numerous times throughout our day because it slows our heart rate and it lowers our levels of cortisol. Your skin is actually your external nervous system. Touch regulates the brain and the body, and it regulates the body chemistry. Now we all have our own laws of social contact. Think about this. Who and when is it that you touch? And where do you touch them? And who touches you? American culture says it's socially acceptable to touch and stretch, but everything we do, sitting, walking, standing, hugging, kissing, feeling pain, relies on the sense of touch. Have you ever noticed how often you might rub your forehead or flip your hair or put your chin into your, and it regulates the body chemistry?
Watch a movie about getting the virus.
Did any of y'all did any of y'all catch the virus?
No,
No?
not that I know of, maybe.
Yeah.
I never got tested or.
Did you ever have to quarantine?
No, I never did.
Like, I got it apparently twice. And the second time, this is where I quarantined. And it's like, Main Street's there, but it's like being on an island. I mean, you're alone. Like 14 days. And my hair fell out. I got all these like weird patches. And then I lost my sense of smell. And that's like the most screwed up thing, because you don't know when it's going to come back or if it comes back. And food doesn't taste like food. It's just texture and just temperature. But it was just bland. And it gets up, somehow it gets up in the top of the nose, and it takes away the pheromones. And so you have no pleasure in anything. It's like anhedonia. And you don't really even care about people. And you feel so fucking isolated. I mean, physically, and then just the world feels like it's not there because it just doesn't make any sense. It's a bitch, man. Anyway, this was my quarantine room. Those don't get in just I got the virus, maybe not, in June going to Mexico for dental work. I think it might have been a false positive because I was asymptomatic. Then in November, I was in the wrong place, doing the wrong fucking thing. In my bar, antique store, he got it. And actually, someone else got sick with me. And I thought it was a hangover. I thought like I drunk too much, like my joints were aching, and I thought, well, this will go in a couple of days. And the hangover wouldn't go. And when I got tested, I'm like, yeah, it was positive. And then I get about a week, like my sense of smell disappeared. And like food had no taste. And I would drink a Coke, just to get the fizz, the texture. And you could get temperature, but it also got the pheromones were up here, which is like pleasure, attraction. It blocked that. So it was this anhedonia. There was no fucking pleasure. And like, okay, that guy's blind, or that guy's deaf, that guy can't smell. And then it wasn't even just not smelling, it was no joy. And then quarantine, and this is the room I did it. And you're completely by yourself on a desert island. And eventually, you wonder, I mean, if they smell again. The virus, my antibodies kicked it. You know? And then the smell slowly came back and then started to taste. I'm like, okay, that's good. But my antibodies hadn't quit. I don't knew it. And then my hair started falling out. And then I still had the joint aches and exhaustion. If you've been safe, been good, you know, awesome. But it sucks. You know, and it's different everybody, it's a different story, different way to interact. This is about the isolation of quarantine.
So you hear the sound? You know what that is? So at a hospital, they put people on ventilators to breathe because they can't breathe anymore. And so the beeping is their heartbeat, but the breathing sound is the machine breathing for them.
The party is ready. We may continue. Follow me, please. Excuse me. This way.
Hi. First one's about shame, second one's about quarantine, and this one's about loss. And over 500,000 Americans died. And let me tell you what's so fucked up about this. My mother, 89, she didn't get the virus. She had a heart thing happen. And my father called the ambulance and they picked her up and took her to the hospital. Not a normal hospital. And she'd had this condition before and her normal doctor would know what to do. And then my dad couldn't get through to the hospital to explain to him, this is the condition. She needs her heart drained. And, you know, and she'd been fine before. And he tried to go visit her and they wouldn't let her in because of the virus and protocols. 89 years old. On the table are pictures of their wedding 67 years ago. And my mom was a first grade teacher, so she had the summers off, and my dad retired at 57. And so every summer they'd go on a big trip, cruise or plane trip, all over the world. And my mom would get an elephant wherever she went. And then she was a first grade teacher, so she'd put a little dot on the bottom of the elephant, and she had a book with the number, and you can look in a book and like, oh, okay, elephant 432 in Israel, made out of iron, $25. Each elephant was a memory of a trip that she took. Anyway, my brother here called up my father and said, Mom died. He fell on the floor and cried like he never cried, ever. He thought she was going to come back. And he didn't get to be with her. She died alone. And that's what's so fucked up here. It's all these people, because of the virus, their loved ones, and the people that cared about them couldn't be there. So we had a lot of people die alone. And not just here, all over the world. And then, if the virus wasn't finished being an asshole, it had one more trick. The living didn't get to have a funeral. It didn't get that basic human ritual of saying, what a wonderful life she had. She was a first grade teacher for 60 years. She was taught over 7,000 children how to read. What a person, what a magnificent life. She died, but man, what a life. We didn't get to do that. So, she gave me this box, and they're letters. And her father was in World War II as an engineer working on the Manhattan Project, which built the atom bomb. And he moved lots of radioactive material in. And then it got into his body, and it gave him sinus cancer. And then he went to the Mayo Clinic and to work on new alternatives in cancer. But it couldn't stop it, and its face, it got all in its face, and it just ate the bones. And my mom was in college and watched her dad's face disappear. But when he was in the Mayo Clinic, he sent her letters every day. And my mom gave me the box of the letters her father sent her. And glacially, I read them, and the letters say, don't worry about your grades. Don't worry about that. Just have a good life. Have fun. And that's what you taught me. Have a good life. Have fun. And thank you for coming. And I hope you have good lives and have fun. Take care.
Thank you for sharing with us.
Those are my tips.
Thank you. Sorry for your loss. Yeah. Very sorry.
for, so many years, we've kind of found a way to treat it, or I've found a way to treat it. And I've recorded an audience, and I play in front of an artificial audience. Yeah.
Before you leave, you'll be required to quarantine for 5 minutes. And you'll be required to enter into the virus as the virus has entered into us. What you'll hear when you go into this 20-foot diameter dome is the sound of the Morse code, which is the translation of each of these nucleotides of the 72,297 nucleotides that make up the coronavirus. That then is further translated into bass, alto, tenor, and soprano, like medieval chant, which was meant to mimic the harmony of the spheres, which they thought was the structure and the vibration of reality. The low tone will be a 40 hertz tone, which is associated with gamma brain waves, and recently at Psi Laboratories in MIT, they've discovered that it has effect on plaque formation and may be used as a treatment or even a prevention of dementia and Alzheimer's. If at any point you get stressed, you feel free to leave. You'll walk in, I'll turn off the lights, and then after 5 minutes I'll turn on the lights. You can stay and decompress as long as you need to, but after that point you're free to leave from the quarantine. Please follow me into the virus.
Influenza directive from Washington, D.C., Division of Sanitation, United States Navy. Washington, D.C., September 26, 1918. The influenza is a grip. It is now spreading over the country in epidemic form. The term Spanish influenza has been applied because of its recent prevalence in Spain. Influenza occurs every year in the United States, but it's more contagious during an epidemic, and pneumonia is the most frequent complication. Influenza is caused by a germ, the influenza bacillus, which lives but a short time outside of the body. Fresh air and sunshine kill the germ in a few minutes. The disease is spread by the moist secretions from the nose and throats of infected persons. Avoid being sprayed by the nose and throat secretions of others. Avoid crowded streets. Walk to the office as possible. Keep out of crowds. Avoid theaters, moving picture shows, and other places of public assembly. Do not travel by railroad unless absolutely necessary. Avoid closed, stuffy, poorly ventilated rooms. Insist upon fresh air, but avoid disagreeable drafts. Eat simple, nourishing food, drink plenty of water, and avoid constipation. Cover the mouth with a handkerchief. Boil your handkerchiefs and other contaminated articles. Wash your hands frequently. Keep away from others as much as possible while you have a cough. To hasten recovery and lessen the danger of complications, go to bed at once and keep the body warm. At the beginning of the disease, a cathartic, such as 2.5 grains of calomel, followed by a seidlitz powder or Epsom salt, is useful. Aspirin of 5-grain doses is useful for pain, but do not take large doses of aspirin, phenacetin, or other medications. Send for a doctor. My age was going on 5 years old. My dad had the influenza. He lost consciousness 3 days and nights and then lived. Then a brother of mine, a younger brother, a baby, got it and lived, but it affected his brain. They really couldn't hold funerals. More or less, some of the bodies got out there, and back then there was plenty of old lumber around, and they'd build a box and build a casket and cover it with cloth, if you had that much, and put it in there. I remember I helped build a lot of graves. They put them 6 feet under. The influenza was traveling like wildfire through the little huts of the village. There was confusion, suffering, terror everywhere. The sick and the well were all huddled together in beds. In many cases, the families only had one bed. And there was a roaring fire in each house. The windows were nailed down and the doors shut tight. The people were afraid of a bit of fresh air, and it took a good deal of tact, and in some cases force, to get fresh air to them. Another of our greatest difficulties was to stop their careless spitting on the walls, on the floors, and everywhere. The way we did check it was to place a tin can on a chair beside each bed and make them use those, and the cans we burned each day. Now, we couldn't get to the camp every day, but during our absence, we left several responsible women to see that all went well. We saw to it that these women were well instructed, for life and death hung in the balance.